and I want to skip you till we swear you in, John. Jason Blanick.
Here.
Rick Wegworth. Here. David Pratka.
Here.
Steve Dutchman.
Here.
And Trevor Bays. Here. Okay. All right. So at this time, consideration and or action on the following: the approval of the place 4 director. And so I'd entertain a motion to approve Josh Borderoux from the city of Waco and place 4 district. I'd make a motion that we accept him as a member.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any arguments? Proof of any pictures? Seeing none, it's all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Okay, if you'll come forward, I'll swear you in. Just come right around here. And you can follow along right there, and then we'll sign that. So, McLennan County Rural Transit District oath of office, place 4, in the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, I, Josh Borderoux,
I, Josh Borderoux,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office
of the member of the Rural Transit District of McLennan County, Texas,
a board member of the Rural Transit District of McLennan County, Texas,
and the state of Texas,
in the state of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend
and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and the laws of the United States, so help me God.
the Constitution and laws of the United States, so help me God.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.
Congratulations.
Appreciate you having me.
All right, if you'll sign that right
Will
there.
do.
And we have also in attendance by Zoom is Attorney Mike Dixon and Dustin Chapman are both on as well. So, okay, so next agenda item is approval of the minutes from the last meeting, which was Thursday, August 22nd, 2024. Is there any additions or corrections to those minutes? All right, what's the pleasure of the group?
Motion to approve. Second.
The motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Under C, operations report, ridership program, revenues, expenses, equipment, marketing plans, and related matters. Under C1, operations report for October 2023 through September 2024.
Yes, sir. If you can put the PowerPoint up, please.
Okay. We have screens here and screens behind us here.
All right, thank you all for being here today. Could we move to the next slide, please? All right, so I'm going to be covering, as the agenda shows, the rural commuter ridership statistics through September. We'll give a fiscal year overview, and that's going to be the ridership slides. I'm going to also provide some information on the service expansion project that we began on September the 1st, and there's some flyers at your side that we'll review. I'm going to show you a couple of videos, a couple of photos of the new vehicles that we have in stock, and then we'll go through the financials. I was able to put them on the PowerPoint, but you might want to reference them on your printout so that it'd be a little larger for you. Next slide, please. So for the fiscal year, we came away with a total of 20,172 total trips for the calendar year. We did continue to work through some struggles with staffing. This area has less than a 4% unemployment rate, and so trying to pull in individuals that want to operate the vehicles and keep them retained. So we have pushed to increase our wages. So the starting wage for the rural drivers has moved up to $15. We want to make sure that we're compatible competitive, that we're competitive with the wages around the community. The city of Waco, I think their lowest wage that they're paid is $15. And since our part-time operators come in, and we also allow to work with them on a life, we try to do a work balance type schedule. So if they only want to work part-time, if they're retired from somewhere, and we often share employees with the school bus company. And so we try to be real flexible with that. However, moving our wage up has proven to be beneficial, and we also move towards an automated employee portal. So instead of individuals having to come to Waco to try to complete the applications for our counties that we serve, for the communities that we serve outside of Waco, they can do that online. We could do a virtual interview. We can bring them in, and then we're able to facilitate that in an expedited manner versus a paper process that took a lot longer. Our rural service, as you all know, we've been still continuously growing that. We are in a better position than we were a year ago, but it is a process. We did start a new service on September the 3rd, and so we got about 9 riders, but I did check October's numbers, and it has increased, and we're continuing to promote that. It is a commuter route that feeds into Waco at certain times of the day, so we're continuing to work with the individuals in that China Spring, Crawford, McGregor area. So instead of them just having a demand response type service where they have to call and schedule a wait, they can get on that commuter van at those certain times, pulse into the city, utilize the fixed route services, and then pulse back. So we're trying to figure out a way to create a more express type service instead of being on the van with a shared ride performance. And so our hope is that we'll continue to grow that and be able to provide y'all some additional data as that service continues. TxDOT is requiring us to do some additional KPIs with key performance indicators with regards to the new services that we put out, and so we'll be providing that to y'all as well. Next slide, please. Here is the comparison for the years past. The red was 2021, 2022. Those are our pre-COVID numbers. We started looking at 23 and 24 as coming out of that trend where we got more employees. And so you can see where red was really high pre-COVID. You can see blue was when COVID kicked in. You can see the green is when we started coming back, and blue is showing where we're trending back up. And so we have implemented some microtransit zones that are servicing in Hewitt and an area there, Belle Meade and the area there. So some of those trips that would have been scheduled as demand response that would have come over to rural services, they're being picked up by that microtransit, and so some of those numbers are shifting. And we are implementing a new software between both services, and so the microtransit, the app that we'll be using, individuals in McLennan County as well as in the city of Waco would be able to schedule any type of trip, not just a microtransit trip, on that app. They would be able to track that trip on that app, and then they would be able to, so we can enhance the rider experience. And so we signed that contract earlier this week or last week at the council meeting, and that will be used across all services. And so we hope with that more expedited personal ability to schedule, not having to go through a call queue, tracking your trip like you do with an Uber trip. We're hoping that that increases our passenger experience and in return gives us additional ridership. Next slide, sir.
I got a question on, so explain to me again, if I'm looking at the right bar, that in August, it really dropped off.
That was my question too.
At 24, which is, if you look back at the steepest drop-offs, it's almost relative to that.
Which one are we on, sir?
Yeah, so in the, for 2024
Okay.
line, something happened in August where it just went down through August and September.
That's probably contributed to the Medicaid trips. The Medicaid contracts have decreased in the amount of trips that they've been providing across the state of Texas. It's not just specific to McLennan County.
So is that because state Medicaid funds are low and they just cut back on it, or what?
The contractors are, they're the ones who have the the rates with the state, and so, again, it's not specific to McLennan. I don't know specifically if it's associated with the funding through the state, if that was aligned differently than it's been in the past. But we had a call today with all of our rural members with Texas Transit Association, and some of them are actually backing out of using the Medicaid service because the amount of distance that they travel, and they're only getting about 5 trips, and it's just not cost effective to have a vehicle captive for, all day when you're only getting 10 trips maybe for the month.
Yeah, so if you took from October to today, are you guessing that trend's still down, or is it moving back up? Or do you have any idea to predict past this, what this graph shows?
I don't know specifically, but I can look into it and provide you guys a follow-up to see if it's trending back up.
Well, your next report should.
Yeah,
pick it
it'll
up.
give you the
Yeah,
specifics,
I just
but
wondering if it's a problem that could be fixed, the state contract.
and the way that the contractors assign those trips, it's outside of our control. And what often happens is public transit providers, since we do have a higher cost per trip than a private provider, and we have additional training that's required versus a private provider, sometimes they're shifting those trips over to those private entities because it's a lower cost to them,
Yeah.
and they get to keep a higher rate of the fee.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be competitive with the state requirements we have to meet to be credentialed to provide public service, and they don't require those same credentials for a private provider. And so we've been fighting that, and we've had meetings with the providers with regards to why there's an inconsistency, and we're required to do so much more, and then they shift our trips over to those that are not.
And then Medicaid reimbursement, is it the same as it was? In other words, if they take a Medicaid person to see the doctor or whatever, it's a discounted fee, right? But you get reimbursed back from the government to right-size that back up. Am I correct about that? I know it.
No, so what we do is we would go in and negotiate a rate, and it's usually at a higher rate. So we would get $3 fare for a regular trip, and we would probably get, depending on the distance, would get $20, $40, $60.
Okay,
And
okay, so
then-
there's not a reimbursement then, it's just your bid, and you just didn't win the bid. Which if you're bidding something at a loss, that's no fun either, so you may be better off with it dropping off like that.
But for us, it's the local match side that's essential to our service delivery. So we try to find a balance between, if we pull out, then we don't receive as much local match, then we have to look at other resources to pull down those federal grants. And so what we try to do is look at how cost-effective the trip is. And if we're getting a good volume, then, it's more cost-effective, because then we don't have to say, we need to go to a different fund, like the general fund with the city, or come to you all based off of the contract. There is a certain amount allocated, but we haven't had to seek those dollars at any point. And that's what we try to do so that we can show the added value of the service. Right. So we look for those revenues to keep, the added value of what we do.
Okay.
And it was budgeted $427 in revenue. Now,
That was our actual.
that's the actual.
Yeah, the budget was 10,000 and some change, and that was because at the end of last year, we started seeing that decline. And then for whatever reason, it went back up at the beginning of the fiscal year. And so we exceeded what we were expecting to receive based on that lower trip rate we were getting at the end of last year, or when we did the budget. So we weren't expecting to even get 40,000 this year.
But I try to meet with our Medicaid. We have 2 providers, Mode of Care and Safe Ride. And so I do meet with their administrators like quarterly, because I want to make sure they understand that Waco and McLennan County, we want to be engaged, we're available, we want to create a seamless travel, so as long as we kind of stay on their mind, we want to be the ones that they give those trips to for those additional revenues.
So they're your contractor, correct?
Yes.
On the, okay,
We work, yeah.
all right. What would be an example of a private provider then?
Not a public transit system.
They
So
have
pro-
like little vans
Like
you'll see
little,
around
like a
town.
little mom and pop can provide a Medicaid service if they can meet that insurance that's different for,
Is this
mom
like
and
an
pop.
Uber or,
No, it could be Felton's transit system. It could be Felton's, express
about
service. And then he could go
Okay.
through and not have to have all the credentials that's required for a public transit system to receive those federal dollars.
Okay.
Because they're not getting any federal dollars.
So they're little, small, independent business.
Yes,
people.
sir. Yes, sir.
They own a few vans and their insurance is way less than ours, and
so they're figuring out how to pull down the Medicaid dollars. They've found a way to.
They can operate cheaper, so-
Yeah, right, yeah. Mhm.
Trevor, do you have a question?
What is the microtransit you said you'll have in Bellevue and Hewitt?
Oh, they are there are 3 zones where we provide services through, like a Uber service, but they're in 3 different zones because what we're trying to do is, create more frequency. And so we're looking at ways to bring the core system back in so we don't have an hour out and an hour back in. And the way that, this county is designed, parts of it may not be Waco, and then if you continue to move outward, it is Waco. And so we have these gaps where, it's not as if they don't, the 5307 funding is for the urbanized area, but we have these gaps in between. And so what I'm trying to do is create more frequency so that instead of it being an hour out and an hour in, it's less, but then create that additional frequency in the rural communities because they can schedule on that app, and if that vehicle is in that capacity, in that vicinity, it'll go ahead and schedule it instead of them having to call Waco Transit, schedule a trip, wait for it to get there. If the trips are in that area, that app will pick it up, and it's a more expedited service versus pre-scheduled and then waiting. So that's the direction we're moving. We've had our kickoff meeting again. The contract was signed last Tuesday. And so I'll be bringing you guys some details on how that's happening as we continue with the implementation of it.
Just for a new board member here, like, when you're talking about August, 1,928 even talking about ridership, could one person have gotten 10 rides, and that would be like on 10 separate days, one person
Yes, sir.
utilized transit, that would have been 10 of those, is that right?
Correct.
Whether or not there was someone else in the van or the bus.
Correct. It's total ridership per individual for the month of service.
Okay, the amount of trips per, okay, got it.
Yes, sir.
Just checking, I didn't.
No worries.
Get the stats.
That's okay. Any other questions on this slide, Commissioner Jones? Next slide, please. And so here's the comparison that will show you the specifics. And so you'll see that our demand response, which is the service where you call in, they schedule the trip, and then they go pick you up. That's the demand response. And then you have the McGregor commuter that we've had, and then we're trying to revitalize it because they've got some growth. You show the parole shuttle where they come in from the rural, and then they catch the shuttle from the transfer terminal to the parole office, and then they come back in, and if you live in the rural area, you'll either, feed into the rural service, or you'll catch the fixed route, and so that's the parole number. We don't like to see that grow, but we like to make sure that they meet that expectation for not to repeat recidivism. So that's the red one. And then the 5310 number is contracted elderly and disabled service. So it's a different funding source from 5311 that provides the demand response. So the 5310 trips are, you have to be over 63, and then, is it 63?
I don't wanna lie to you, so.
Yeah, it's either 63 or 65, and you would qualify for that, or if you have a disability. And those are the trips that we shift to Central Texas Senior Ministries sometimes, so that we can help cover some costs for them, because it's a grant that we have to apply for, and those trips go to, but we count them as ours.
And there's special equipment on those vehicles too.
Sir?
There's special equipment on them to lift chairs and,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All of our vehicles in the fleet are accessible. And so even the MV1s, everything, we try to make sure that regardless of who needs to use the service, we're not limited on capacity. So we make sure every vehicle has wheelchair capacities.
okay.
Next slide, please.
Well, I have a question. You have on that last slide, do you have the on-demand, you have a pretty big dip from 22 to 23, and then it jumps way back up in 24.
That was COVID, was 21 was when we, COVID hit.
Right.
And so we didn't provide service for some time during COVID. 22 was when we started, trying to, 22 was kind of like the COVID time. It was like April, and then it went all the way through the next. And then we started building back at the end of 22, coming into 23, and then we're here in 24.
So you think the 24 number is the more realistic
Yes, sir. It's a-
bottom of the services?
Yes,
As far
sir.
as
Yes,
number,
sir.
and just grow from there?
Yes, sir. We're trying to just recapture that ridership we lost. A lot of things changed. People started working from home. I mean, a lot of people started taking more classes at home. It's just the dynamics of the service delivery we provide, but we still get a lot of the dialysis. And so what we're trying to do is change the story from it being a service for people that you can only use it if you have a disability, from a service that creates quality of life. Go get your hair cut, go see a movie. We're trying to really change the narrative associated with public transit, because oftentimes people think it's for those people, and they don't recognize that it's a connector for students who may be coming in from a rural city that may attend TSTC or MCC. So we're trying to tap into those high schools, just trying to really reinvent what public transit is and what people perceive it to be.
Okay.
Broader convenience, I guess you'd say, but, I mean, if your car's broke down or whatever, you wanna go shopping, like, call them up, they'll take you, so.
And our hope is that app for our riders, they'll be able to say, okay, here, there is a vehicle in the area, I can just schedule this, it'll be here in a couple of minutes, just like a Uber, and then we'll be able to capture that ridership to increase our funding sources.
Is that app that y'all chose, is it one that's already in, I think it was the Ride Pingo app for that micro transit. Is that the same one?
No, sir. That was a pilot program we were using. And so the app that we will be moving forward with is with Spare. And the thing that I would like to do as we continue to move forward with it is the HOP uses Spare, and there's a couple of other systems along 35. And so we want to kind of get together and present something to TxDOT to where we can create maybe like a seamless transit through the same app connecting, because we have a lot of people with disabilities who, like right now, Eric Gleason contacted me directly to try to figure out how do we facilitate a trip from McLennan County to Williamson County, because of some changes that are going on with the service delivery that the HOP provides. And so if we had that seamless connection through all of us, and we had an agreement as to how that would be done, it would be better for those that use our service instead of us working in our isolated pockets, because you really can't transfer over into somebody else's service area without permission. And so we've got some creative ideas working with Tony Austin and some of the other transit districts, but again, it just takes presenting it and having all the data points to support why we believe it'd be beneficial. So,
And money.
Yeah.
but if we could do some shared costs.
Spare rider, is that what, I just looked it up, I was, spare rider?
It's
There's a spare rider, spare driver.
I think it's,
it'd probably be the spare rider, but we won't have that.
We aren't-
We'll be
that's not
doing Ride
implemented yet.
Pingo. Ride Pingo will be there through the end of December.
Oh,
And
okay.
then, because we got to do the migration, and we just signed again the contract last Tuesday with council, so it'll take some time for us to
train and
implement
everything.
that change.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions on this one? Any additional questions?
Questions?
Y'all seen it in a couple couples utilize this for a date night into the city?
We only
Ride
see
home.
couples on, what's the,
Can you use it for a ride home? Like, you don't have
We
to
have
go
a
somewhere?
lady that comes from McGregor and she goes to the crime shame to see her friends and goes home off of it. So, I mean, like, she just wants to get out of the house.
Yeah, I love it.
and so
I
again,
Well, it's a safe ride home too, right?
It is, but I mean, it's just one more point of view that you can use it to get out and socialize too.
change the narrative of what public transit can do and can be versus what it's always
Doesn't see the
perceived as. So,
One more, we're not trying to keep this meeting running, but, a couple meetings ago, there was talk about a commuter route towards Mart, Riesel, Hallsburg. What is the update, if there is one, on that commuter route that was mentioned?
so what we did with that was we put out a survey to try to see the feedback, because we had to provide some data points to TxDOT when we were looking at delivering this. So we did a mail out, and the area that, we had some that said, no, we wouldn't use it. And so we used that data to kind of define where we would put this new service, because if the feedback is we're not going to use it, then TxDOT doesn't want to fund something where we can't show some type of return on that investment. And so we picked the area where the consumers that would use the service dictated that it would be needed. But we'll continue to evaluate this. We'll send out another quarterly survey as part of our strategic plan to gauge our customer experience. And if the need is there and the demand justifies it, there's additional funding that's being offered for an expansion program. But you don't want to ask for money from TxDOT and you can't expense it down. It's just not a good look. And if you're not moving any people, but you just have a bunch of expenses, then it's just not looked at too kindly. And so it's all about the data that we can receive to support it.
Might encourage folks to respond to those surveys. They might have a need, just not responding, but
And we try to do a mail out as well as a QR with a stamp return, because we recognize everybody doesn't want to use technology to respond to a survey. Some people want to. We have a lot of,
Yeah.
Elderly people and people that want to go old school and they want to mail it back.
people like paper ballots.
That's right. And so we mail it, and we have it on the website. So there's different options, and we put it in our vehicles, and we put it in the communities, because if you don't use the service, then that's not really a avenue to where we can get your feedback. So that's when we reach out to, city managers, city departments, and then we find out, what's in that area. We go door to door knock. I mean, we try to get as engaged as we can, because if you're in the community and you meet the people, then they're more apt to say,
Yeah.
I think I feel comfortable using this, versus you just send me something through technology, it's just discarded. So we really are foots on the ground with our approach.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Here is the commuter bus ridership. We have everyone that had been in here previously understands that in early part of '23, we stopped providing rural services to Marlin because we were requested not to. And so you will see how we have worked to rebuild this route, and that shows where the green was 23, where we did the drop, and then you can see the purple in 24, where we're building it back up. And so that's why we're constantly trying to get feedback as to where can we put an express type ride, an express type service commuter per se, to get people here in one shot versus a shared ride. And so we're building, and it's getting better, but it's taking some time. Next slide, please. Any questions? And here we are with our commuter ride 21, 22, 23, and 24. And you'll see the different colors represent the year. And then you can see that little service that started on September the 3rd that had 9 people that month. And then those are the rest of them. So as time, I wanted to separate it out. I could have just threw it in there, but I felt like to be able to show you all how that growth will happen and does happen is better than just putting it all in as a single commuter service. So that's that new little part over there. Any questions on commuters? Next slide, please. And here I provided you all a slide just to kind of show you the the commuter route. It's designed, the times that it runs, it's Monday through Saturday. Some of our systems out there are limiting demand response. They're transitioning over to more of a micro transit at certain times on certain days. And we want to make sure that we provide a service that continues to align with what the fixed route is doing. We feel like if we limit people based off of what we believe is best for us, that may not necessarily be best for the individuals that we've been, charged with providing service for. And so here is our attempt to feed them into Waco and then feed them back home, instead of having them linger here all day, and wait on a demand response and pick up people from other appointments. This allows that opportunity for a more direct route back to their home. And so, again, we'll keep evaluating this, and if change needs to happen, then we are in a position where we can change it. But our hope is that we can continue to promote on our social media. We had it shared by the mobility community. We've had it shared by lots of community support groups. And so our hope is that it'll continue to grow. Any questions?
I just wonder if we bought, or instead of using waco-texas.com-transit, if we did a McLennan County Transit, our own, I mean, even if it just links right to Waco, the Waco Transit, what if we did a McLennan County Rural Transit District, what address?
Like a standalone
Yeah.
website?
We're on the counties, and there's also a rural portion on the Waco one, but we can definitely.
We can look at it, but yeah, the link to the county has a spot for us with all of our information. And then if you click it, it'll come over to our site, because we do a shared cost for IT services. And when we do something separate, it becomes a standalone cost. So we can look at that, Commissioner Jones, and provide you some feedback on what that may be and how.
And again, I'm always going to be an advocate for free passes. So
Free passes.
to get
You can
people.
do that for a little while till you go broke.
Yeah, I know that, but if I think that it's, when we first started this, so I just,
So I'll bet you, Serena would sell us some passes that we can give away free.
yeah, I mean, and that would be,
Huh?
I said any day.
Yeah.
And the
We've done
fairs,
that.
the fairs help us not have to pay as much local match for the grants. And so that's the benefit of the fair, because if you don't have it, you have to always have your % of match. And then you have to start digging into, other resources. Like now we're asking the county if we can have a certain amount, to pull down those dollars. So the fairs, they may not cover our costs, but they do help us to where we don't have to rely on the municipalities and the county for that grant money.
What would an average fare be like? So like for Our Lady coming into the crying shame, like what is that?
A true cost?
Like to her out of pocket?
Oh, it's $3.
It's $3 now.
$3 total for round trip
Oh,
or three each
$6.
way?
$6.
$6.
Okay,
Or one way, right?
$3 each way.
one, okay,
Or if it's same day or connecting, right, it's $5.
Correct.
There you go.
okay, with the connection.
If you go to an adjacent county, or if you schedule same-day service, because the trip has to originate in McLennan County, but we can go to adjacent counties for a drop-off, but we cannot schedule a pickup in an adjacent county, because that's not our service area. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Any questions on this?
If you, on this, Josh, on this financial, you can see the sources of revenue, and there's several like federal grants, transportation grants. Without that, we couldn't do $3.
Right, so it's heavily subsidized.
Yeah, and, I'm correct?
You're
Yes.
correct.
Yeah.
And
And so, and even, but they're able to negotiate with a Sanderson Farms or whoever to Sanderson Farms, or let's say any company that just said, we've got to work harder to reach out and get more employees, and we need to go to Falls County or wherever. And we want them to use public transportation because we don't have enough room on our parking lots and all of that, then they would cut a deal with them. They would subsidize the cost of that ticket and get that, discount that even further to their employees.
Like right now, we provide a service to Sanderson Farms for their non-traditional shift. We pick those employees up at 1:00 a.m. and then we take them home on a demand response, and they pay for that service. They help support that service, because if not, our service hours would be reflective of that of the fixed routes. And so to provide that level of service Monday through Saturday, they pay a portion of that cost. And then we also provide a non-traditional night service where from 8:30 to 12, you can catch a service at night that's demand response to take you home as well. It's non-traditional hours. So
I hate to repeat, if I did, just let me know. I'm trying to figure out the commuter route in your chart here on the website. So it leaves the Waco Transit Terminal at 7:45,
yes, sir.
and so and then it does a loop, and you're only doing one loop.
We do that first loop, and we're back at 9:15. That's the amount of time it takes to do that loop. And then at 9:15, we do the China Spring loop. And then we take that loop and we bring it back in at 10:15. And then individuals are out and about doing what they need to. If they want to catch that 12:45 first loop back, then that would be the one that would take them to Crawford McGregor. And then they could take the 2:15, that would take them to China Spring. The 2 o'clock, it would come back at 12:45, it would be back by 2, and then the 2:15 would take them out to China Springs and be back by 3:15. And it's Monday through Saturday, and so that's the opportunity for them to come directly in and then directly out.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? Okay, next slide, please. Oh, and we do all of our advertisements in English and Spanish. We just want to make sure you knew. Okay, and these were the new vehicles that we purchased. We've already had some advertising on there. And advertising is another way for us to bring in additional revenues so we can help pull down the local match dollars needed for the grants. So we've got the Nutcracker coming. We try to check the website. We try to check and see what's coming to the communities. And then we try to go out and see if we can get them to advertise with us. And so we can, again, minimize the impact that it has on any of the other budgets that support our services. And we got 2 of those, and we have an additional one that's on order. So, all right, next slide, please. All right, financials.
For financials, I wanted to just state in general, we came in at like 76% of our proposed budget for fiscal year '24. So what we thought we were going to spend, we came in under budget, which is always good news for us. That shared expense with Waco for like your HR people, your GM, me, like that shared salary across the board is one thing that really helps keep that cost down, which is allowing us to spend 84% of our expenses towards operations alone. So like that's a huge deal, is that we're putting 84% of our expenses to the community and actually putting the service out. And the other 16 is for that admin and maintenance. I mean, that 84% though is, I mean, that's huge.
Some systems have an indirect cost that's 50% of their operating budget that they pay for oversight. And so for you all to have did that interlocal agreement, it saves you significantly than having that ran as an independent service, because then everything, all those expenses go towards these dollars, and then it limits where you can provide that additional growth for a commuter route, because you got so much overhead. And so this has really been a great thing, and we really, our purpose is to put the service on the streets, not to have, 50% of our money going to, indirect costs for our staffing.
Yeah,
So,
appreciate that.
yes, sir.
Overall, I know that there's quite a few expense accounts that are in the red, but if you look, that money is distributed in other accounts where you didn't even reach the budgets. Like I said, we still came under budget significantly, like by almost 400,000. So, I mean, that's a big deal. I do have our next year's funding provided, and that's service expansion is giving us an additional, I don't want to say it wrong, 162,000 to contribute to our operational costs for this year. So that's pretty exciting, that we'll be able to, have more to put towards operations again.
And you all know that when we do this budget at the beginning of when we work on the budget projections, we project based off of the historical data. And so that's why some columns may be higher, some may be lower, but we're still allowed to reallocate those costs in the end and make sure that the budget balances. And so we do the activity line items so that we can kind of see where do we need to project instead of just making it one blanket group. And then we will adjust that, and as long as our expenses and revenues are matching, then we know that we're doing good. But sometimes from year to year, you may have you may have a supervisor role that transitions over that you didn't necessarily have the year before. So you see where that may be at a higher percentage versus what we projected it at. But again, we reallocate that at the end based off of our actual dollars, and that's how we provide you all the percent of service delivery and where we're at budget-wise. Yes, sir, Mr. Blaze?
I guess last year, almost 24,000 advertising. This is the first year you've seen that huge, almost $20,000.
So we actually only brought in 3. That was what we were hoping.
Yeah. So I guess 23 was it, 20 somewhere around that. And then
It was 18 combined last year. It's just what's available. I mean, like, we have a marketing director that handles all that.
A lot of people are moving from print advertising to media. They want to use media options, and so that requires an investment of technology that we're not at with our vehicles right now. So we really have to push the importance of the print, the size of the billboard. We reach out to banks. We're in the rural communities just trying to advertise, like we have the Nutcracker coming. So you saw, we put that on a rural vehicle. And so what we try to do is push for whatever the event is. We try to encourage them to advertise specifically with the vehicles that would give them that most exposure. And so I'm always gonna push for that, that advertising dollars to be good, because that is a market that, depending on the year, sometimes we're really high, but a lot of businesses were cutting their advertising dollars, which has a direct impact on those that, some of our repeat people that we went back to, that was just an area where their business cut for savings.
And just real quick, and first time I'm looking at this is the final kind of, the actuals
Yes.
is
So
Yes,
you
it's
have your
final
budget,
budget
yes.
of, okay.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
so
the end
you
of the
have your
fiscal
budgeted
year.
amount and then your actual and then what you had remaining.
So just checking real quick, 1.9 million in revenue and 1.8, so maybe around in expenses, right?
Yes,
So
so
you-
that deferred, we'll defer it and put it into this year's budget or this year's funds so that we can use it if we have a shortfall one month, like.
The
we don't-
surplus. From
Yes, so, and all of our funds are managed through the city, like through Munis and all that, so,
And I guess my question too then is, how does the listing of fiscal year 23 grants, like how does that factor in? Or is that just, don't put those in, or they're kind of incorporated in there, but you're just listing them out?
They're built into these numbers,
Okay.
in your revenues up there, and then that's just broken out.
Okay.
So that you know what funds, like what we were awarded in 5311, what we were awarded in state. And those are all based off of like land mass, population, ridership,
Passenger miles?
and passenger miles. Sorry, I was trying to remember what the.
So there was a total of 3.7 million available in grants, but we did not redeem all of that.
Expected available, and that, so, yes,
Is that fair? Like, we didn't, all that money didn't come in
Correct.
necessarily, but it was out there,
Correct.
potential, I guess. if
Possibly.
We maxed out everything, and, okay, got it.
And then-
and some of that has to do with like rollover grants, like, so CARES funding threw all of our funding off a little bit. So we had this money that we had to prioritize, and then all of our other, you get annual funding every year awarded to you. So all that kept getting pushed and pushed, and so some of that was available, but it expired, or they couldn't roll it, and we got it again in the next grant. CARES just threw everything off on our prioritizing. There you go,
About like as bad as
prioritizing.
me.
Our funding, like our funding or spending plan.
So you can get an allocation, you can get, it could be appropriated, allocated, but then, you know, if it's not used, you know, some grants may have 2 years, bus facility grants may have 3 years. And so oftentimes they may say if you want to extend that money out, then you can extend it out. So your grant year may actually be 23, but you don't get that money until 24. But the year of it is 23. Grant money is just odd.
And some of it you might be like, hey, look, I got 100 riders in this program, so you're kind of billing the grant. Well, is that fair? You know what I'm talking about? Or are these lump sums that you receive?
That money is based off of your formula funds that you receive from your historical work.
Okay.
So that money is, you've already basically earned it.
Okay.
And so, and it's based off of that formula grant, and so it's yours, and you have to expend it down but by a certain time. And then if TxDOT allows for it to be extended, because maybe they came up with some discretionary funding, and they wanna, like, we have some new money that they rolled over, and the commission's meeting tomorrow, so we ended up with an additional, like, I think it's like $86,000. So that's money that they've given us, which is gonna come into play, but they're still gonna prioritize this other money for us to spend first, and that may have a fiscal year 25 date on it that we may not use until like 26. And so it looks like we haven't touched it, but it's because we don't need it, you know,
Okay,
but they're
so
gonna give it
These
to
are
us.
they're active, but they're not all received during this time and or spent during this time.
Correct.
It's kind of, we're in the period of
Yes,
these
sir.
grants.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
thank y'all so much, appreciate it.
All right.
Okay.
Any other finance questions? We can do a 101 with anybody.
Yeah, just a little
Yeah,
ignorant staff here on
Yeah,
that.
it's
Next
a
slide.
different ballgame.
Yeah, next slide. And then this was just the end of I just wanted to put it up as well as you guys have to print off. Next slide, please. All right. I think we covered questions unless there's any additional.
I think that's got it. Anything else? Okay. All right. Okay, next, item E, approvals and ratifications, if any, for any, grant applications, certifications, or other grant-related matters, expenditures, transfers, so on and so forth. I don't believe there is any, right, to approve, okay? And then, under F is additional items for discussion or, potential action, and, did provide a list, you should have, the recommended dates for the next meetings over this 2025. Do y'all have that? Okay. Okay, and so, look at those. If there's a big conflict or something, let us know, but,
They come from Cody.
so, yeah, come from Cody. All right, anything else to come before the group? Welcome, Josh, to the transportation, the world of rural transportation. And, you know, we appreciate any input that you have. I know you look at Waco transportation and things through the city of Waco. Appreciate everybody coming. I think this is almost the exception of Holmes, which I don't expect him anyway most of the time, so we got a good turnout. So if nothing else, we stand adjourned. Thank y'all for coming.
All right, thank you.
Thank y'all. Thank you, guys.